Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
All right. There's only one football game left this year. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Championship games always get me down because I love it when the tournament starts, like in sports, like the first weekend, right?
The tournament.
Or the second.
Football.
There's
The
all
tournament.
these games, right? The single game, it just gets me down, bums me out.
And then you wait 2 weeks for it too instead of 1 week. When's the last time we did the 1 week between Super Bowl and championship?
It's been a long time.
Was it the Metrodome Super Bowl in the early 90s?
Oh.
Didn't we? It was
I want to say there was one after that. I want to say something
I
like...
only know my lifetime of them having a bye week. I can't remember the last time.
Oh, yeah. No, I want to say that there might have been one, like the Tampa Bay Oakland year way back when with Brad Johnson. There was one where they had to shorten it up.
Oh, okay. So that would have been the 9/11 year, right?
9/11
Where
year,
they
right?
took
That
a
might
week
have been
off
it.
of games.
That might have been it. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's it. I mean, they'll never go back, which is a shame because I used to love it. Just go right to that.
I think you should just play on a Thursday. I think you do conference championship.
And have Al Michaels call it on
Thursday night.
Prime.
Yes, let's do it. Coming up next, it's Super Bowl
this is
Thursday.
Al Michaels. The Super Bowl is next. This game, these two teams aren't really that good. I'm not very excited about it.
He's had a legendary career, and all you
great.
Al Michaels haters out there, just because he gets a little sleepy now in his 80s.
Very sensitive though, always has been.
I don't know, man. He seems checked out as hell. That's not even the fact he's old. I don't think he cares.
Well, he's also seen, like, when you've seen the games, if people are like, how could he not be more excited for that Jaguars-Chargers playoff game? And he's like, I'm Al Michaels. I don't get excited for Jaguars-Chargers.
Sorry. So when NBC pushed him out the pasture, he basically got the NFL to give him that job on Prime. And I think he hates it because he knows he's like imagine being his age and you're on something called streaming.
Well, there's millions of people watching.
But it's not a
That's like asking someone though, like, get off your rotary phone and get an iPhone 10 years. Like, sorry, dude, that's where things are going.
But let's say that you invented the rotary phone. You were in charge of this, and now they're like, get this phone. You're like, but I invented Al Michaels.
Do you believe in rotary? Yes,
yeah, exactly. Yes. Do you believe in text messages? Yes. So I think Al's just down about that, down in the dauber.
Little Al Michaels drive-by there to start Purple Daily
Not
here.
true. I like Al. I've talked to Al a few times.
We're gonna take a poll that was run on Twitter yesterday, and we're gonna bring it to life in topic form here. We also have the hard count, and we have a mock on today's episode, presented in part by our friends at Ballard's Resort. So if you're looking ahead to summertime, which you should be, right? That's especially when it starts snowing again. You're gonna want to have a nice, fun summer trip on the books. Ballard's Resort is situated on the south shore of Lake of the Woods. We're talking about the walleye capital of the world here, and they provide rods, reels, bait, tackle, and a full-service bar and restaurant, plus U.S. Coast Guard licensed guides to make this a wildly fun week or weekend for you. Go to ballardsresort.com to book your stay, ballardsresort.com. So I ran a poll yesterday. The last couple days have been very interesting on Vikings Twitter. I'm sure you guys have popped in. There's a bunch of I don't want to tell people how to be fans, but I guess I'm kind of doing that, breaking my own rule. A lot of people that were like referencing the fact that, well, the Vikings beat the Niners back in October. The Niners are lucky that, they didn't have to face the Vikings on their way. I said, October football, you don't need to hang banners for October football, right? The Niners lost like 3 straight games in October. The Chiefs lost to didn't they lose to the Bengals or something? Like the Chiefs,
Raiders on Christmas.
Yeah,
it was game.
January is where it really matters, especially if you're a franchise that's never won a Super Bowl. So I don't know. I was fighting with people on Twitter and having fun with some fake banners.
Well, I'm frustrated because I've been told for three days now that I'm not doing it right. And somebody tweeted me yesterday accusing me of running a bad Vikings X account.
A bad Vikings fan.
Fan, yeah.
We're both being accused of being bad Vikings fans.
Why are you telling me why are you telling me how to live my life? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that if you don't, look, my only point on Sunday was if you don't want a championship, that's fine. Like that's you live your life accepting the fact. And by the way, there are plenty of places in this town to get that. Like if you don't like us, I'm cool with that. But don't tell me that I should be this like Pollyanna fan.
But I feel like we have to, like 3 or 4 times a year, we have to just sort of reset an explanation here, which is this idea that if you poke holes or criticize your favorite team's imperfections, that you are being a bad or disloyal fan. That the only way to be a good fan is to blindly follow without questioning everything that they do. And then to make proclamations like, boy, if this player would have stayed healthy, then the Vikings would have won their first championship without it being rooted in reality. And whatever. Like, and if you want to be that type of fan, fire away too. But live and let live. But also, we tend to try and ground our conversations in reality, whether we're right or wrong. We try to root it in where our heads aren't in the clouds saying the Vikings have the best everything. If they hadn't gotten hurt, they would have steamrolled their way through the playoffs, right? But I did run this poll yesterday because I was just getting a lot of like, wow, people legitimately think that the Vikings are on the 49ers level because of an October football game in which, by the way, a lot of key players were hurt on both sides. But the Niners were literally missing a Hall of Fame left tackle, Deebo Samuel, who's worth like 2 or 3 yards per play difference. No Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. But I said if Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson had stayed healthy all season, which is the better team in 2023-24? So what do we got? 2,200 votes on this thing? Mm-hmm. 30% say Vikings. 70% say 49ers. We're going to do the tail of the tape here and just see how close are the Vikings, again, if healthy, compared to Niners if healthy. But what do you make of 30% of Vikings fans who voted on this poll saying, if Kirk Cousins hadn't gotten hurt, and Jefferson, but mostly Kirk Cousins, right?
Right.
Because the Vikings actually won games without Justin Jefferson. They won like 5.
Right.
30% saying, yep, Vikings and Niners on the same level.
So I think a quarter of those votes, so 25% of those votes, in my opinion, are people that would vote. If you said, who's better, the Lombardi 67 Packers or this year's Vikings, they'd be like, oh, it's the Vikings every time. Every time the Vikings are better. So
that's fine. That's fine.
Right. But what I'm saying is I think a quarter of that vote is grounded in just the fact that those people would vote for the Vikings against any team. They'd vote for the Vikings against the Chiefs. They'd vote for the Vikings against any team because that's their belief. That's what they want to believe. And look, I'm with you. That's their right. That means that a very small percentage, though, of people who could potentially be on the fence went with San Fran. So I actually think that poll is very, very fair.
Okay. Well, let's go through the exercise here. Let's see how far away, again, if given health, and here are the parameters. Let's say healthy Kirk Cousins, healthy and re-signed Danielle Hunter, healthy Justin Jefferson.
Sure.
I know there's some other like free agency holes here, but we'll just have to figure that out with this exercise. I'm going to give you like 7 different categories of these rosters. Let's see how close the Vikings are to the team that's representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. Head coach. Tail of the tape.
Oh, Shanahan. It's a huge. It might be the biggest check mark. It might be the biggest win for San Francisco.
Shanahan.
Yeah, what he's been able to do with all this quarterback turmoil that they've had, and just he's a genius. I mean, he's made Nick Mullins look good at times. So yes, Shanahan by a mile.
He has a deep understanding of the run game that is completely lacking in Egan.
Oh man, it is that run game.
That's the difference.
And the way that they mirror the concepts of their run and pass game off of each other. It is, and of course, like that's the next category, having a running back that's first ballot Hall of Famer and Christian McCaffrey. By the way, I agree with you. I think we're going to put head coach in the 49ers bin here. And I get that the knock on Shanahan is he's never won the big one. As an offensive coordinator with the Falcons, back in 2016, 17, whatever that was, his offense stopped scoring with a 28-3 lead. So there's these knocks in the big games against Shanahan, and the fact that up until Sunday, his teams don't come back from behind very often too, but they just completed the biggest NFC Championship game comeback in history, down 17 points at halftime. So
the last two wins create a lot of street cred for him, I think. The Packers win and this win are taking him, like, he's getting closer to eliminating a lot of the criticisms.
his teams also, especially in the regular season when you're not playing the best teams in the world every week, his teams can step on a team's throat, right? They'll win a game 38-10. They'll win a game 42-16 or something, which the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell haven't proven yet. Okay, running back, Christian McCaffrey or Ty Chandler?
Yep. Running
Moving
back, philosophy there, and the fact that San Fran again went for it by trading for McCaffrey.
Yeah, so there's not much debate about running back here.
No.
We'll do quarterback in a second because that is an interesting conversation. But let's do the wide receiver tight end group. Let's put wide receivers and tight ends in the same here.
Okay.
So the 49ers, here's my opinion. You tell me if I'm off on this. I think the Vikings have the best wide receiver. If you stacked all the wide receivers, Debo, Ayuk, Jordan Addison, I think Justin Jefferson would rank number one. But Ayuk and Debo are such great chess pieces. They're great run blocking wide receivers. You can use them out of the backfield.
Yes.
You can throw them passes intermediate, short, deep. You can run screen passes for them. They're just like really shifty, interchangeable guys.
Exactly.
And they kind of change. They change what you can do schematically in some ways more than even Justin Jefferson, which sounds crazy. Oh, yeah. But then I think George, all due respect to Travis Kelce, who's the best pass catching tight end, I think George Kittle is the best overall tight end in the NFL because he's really good as a pass catcher, and he's one of the best run blocking tight ends as well. So how do you? This is close. The wide receiver tight end group is pretty close here.
Right now, advantage San Francisco at tight end because of the fact that when healthy, Hawkinson's not the blocker. You literally have two guys to try to do what one guy in San Fran does, right?
Yeah.
Because Kittle can, as you said, he can catch the ball really well, but he also can block his ass off. Hawkinson really can't. Oliver can catch the ball a little bit, but can block well. But I'm going advantage San Fran because you have one guy. The wide receiver conversation to me,
it's so tough.
But I think it's a cop out to like just pick the group because you're right. Justin Jefferson in this group is the best wide receiver, pure wide receiver. And this gets into what the genius of the San Francisco offense is, what Debo and Ayuk to a certain point, and I like him a lot, but Debo, what he does, it's a hybrid. I can't compare him. The skill set is so different as far as because Debo, so Justin Jefferson scares you, but you say, okay, we got to focus. If you're a defensive coordinator about to play the Vikings, you say, we got to focus on 18 and we're going to double him. And here's how we're going to take him out of the game. And he's going to make some plays still. What I love about Debo is he scares the bejeebers out of you when you're lined up against him for a snap because you don't know what he's going to do.
I think if you boil this down to just, all right, and even if you polled like NFL executives, would you rather have Kittle? Let's take the top three in these groups: Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, or Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. First of all, most GMs would say, I'll take either one of those. Those are great trios. I think it's a slight edge San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even mention Brandon Ayuk. That dude led their team in receptions and yards per catch, in receiving yards. Like we talk about how great Kittle and Debo is as this gadget. Brandon Ayuk was their leading receiver last year. And if you really want to get into the weeds, football, Kyle Juszczyk is this insane Swiss Army knife that no one talks about because he doesn't rack up statistics that are these big alarming stats. I think it's pretty close, but I think when push comes to shove, the Niners have the advantage here, but it's a lot closer than we probably think. They're good groups, but when you talk about Ayuk and Juszczyk, it's kind of the forgotten soldiers because George Kittle and obviously Debo Samuel are the ones who get more of the attention. Manage San Francisco.
So for the 2023 season, PFF grades offensively, okay? Top 5 San Francisco. Ayuk is number 1, 92.3.
Yeah.
McCaffrey was 2. George Kittle, though, is 5, 87.6.
At an 87 grade out of 100. That's insane.
But Debo, because of what he can do, he's not in the top 5, but what he can do, like this all to me goes back to coaching.
Debo's played hurt for half the year too,
exactly,
with a bad shoulder.
Yeah. But when what Shanahan does is he's like the master offensive chess player. And O'Connell's good, and he's got some nice pieces, but he doesn't have the game that Kyle does. So that's where it gets sort of murky to me.
Yeah, and nor should he yet, because Kyle has coached a lot more football as a coordinator and as a head coach. And by the way, his dad is Mike Shanahan, one of the best coaches of the 90s and early 2000s, Super Bowl winning coach. Mm-hmm. Okay, quarterback. So Brock Purdy led the NFL in passer rating, QBR, yards per attempt, and touchdown percentage, which is percentage of attempts that result in touchdowns. He's not people call him a game manager. I would say he's one of the more mobile, risk-taking quarterbacks. Like, his average yards per throw is much further down the field. Some of this is like this. They're scheming George Kittle wide open 30 yards down the field too. But he was a huge reason why the Niners completed a 17-point comeback at halftime of the biggest game of his career, NFC Championship game. And there was a play, I'm trying to think of who it was for the Lions. Somebody came off on like a safety blitz in the second half of that game, and it got home. Like, Christian McCaffrey whiffed on the blitz pickup, one of the rare times where Christian McCaffrey whiffs.
I'd bench.
And bench his ass, cut his ass. This blitz gets home, and Purdy ducks underneath, like the defender kind of flies over his back. He sprints out to the left, throws sort of like with his body going to the left, throws with his right arm, and there's Juszczyk doing the Chris Carter thing right on the sideline. The amount of plays he makes, escaping, keeping plays alive that should be dead, I don't know, man. Like, I think Brock Purdy is better than Kirk Cousins. I don't even know if it's a conversation.
It's not. The age, the salary, the ability. Brock Purdy, if you watch him play, first of all, I know he looks like he shouldn't be, this great athlete, but he is. So he reminds me a little bit of, as far as his escapability and size, he reminds me a little bit of Russell Wilson with the Seahawks. He's got some Tarkington to him. Like
Mahomes too, where they're not Lamar Jackson, but they can just scoot around and keep.
And I know quarterback wins are poo-pooed, okay? But I found this stat this morning, and ultimately at the end of the day, you want to win games. With Purdy, Debo, and McCaffrey, since Purdy's first start, when he's had those two guys with him, okay, this team is 19-1 now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's going to a Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins has never sniffed one. It's not hard. It's not hard. I'm sorry, Vikings fans.
It snuck up quick because he wasn't 100%. In the NFL 2 years ago, and he was the last pick. But
the wide receiver one is hard. I'm torn there. Okay.
Yeah.
But on this one, sorry, not hard for me.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think a lot of other executives would say they would pick Kirk Cousins over Brock Purdy.
When you include salary too, it's like not even. But even if you were to say, hey, they're both $40 million quarterbacks, which one would you rather have? They'd say Purdy.
If you had the same dollar amount, I still think people would say Purdy. And yes, he's younger. He's in this awesome car that Shanahan has built. And I'm definitely more pro Brock Purdy, I feel like, than a lot of people who just are waiting for this whole bust discourse to happen. But yet here he is in a Super Bowl, and to Judd's point, has won like 90% of his starts in the NFL, including playoffs. You have to give this guy some credit. He's done it. He's done it so far. So it's Purdy. I would take Brock Purdy over Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, so we're going. So yeah, it's kind of a bloodbath here so far. But I think offensive line is the next category.
Oh, that's good.
So the 49ers do not have a great offensive line outside of Trent Williams this year. It's why when Trent Williams misses time or misses games, the offense looks a lot different. Now, if you were to rank every offensive lineman from 1 through 10, or let's say 1 through 14, the backups that come in and play, the Niners would have the best one. Trent Williams is likely a first ballot Hall of Famer or close.
Yep.
But once you get beyond Trent, I kind of handicap this to it's Trent Williams and then a bunch of league average guys according to Pro Football Focus.
Mm-hmm.
But the Vikings have Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill and some league average guys.
This is easy. Vikings.
It's the Vikings, right?
It's not hard. Again, age has to play a role. Williams is going to Canton. He's a great player. Give me Darrisaw right now.
Williams is 36, by the way. Mm-hmm.
San Fran's right tackle, a weak spot. The Vikings, strong spot. So this is as easy for me to tell you it's the Vikings as it was for me to say Brock Purdy. Not hard.
I think it's the tackles that are really solidified. Like the Vikings are still probably looking for a guard. Garrett Bradbury isn't necessarily an established meat grinder, great center either. So I don't think that this is a wide margin Vikings advantage. But to having two tackles, left and right, established as two of the top 10 guys, that pushes you over. It's not the starting five, in my opinion, that, oh my God, it's leaps and bounds better. It's the two tackles that you have under control for the next few years. And it's advantage Vikings, but I don't think that this is by a wide margin either.
Well, I will say this. If Kirk Cousins had ever gone to San Fran, they would have to beef up that line. That line, like Brock Purdy has to run for his life at times. He's not trying to run nearly as much as he has to. So I actually think that despite the fact I agree with Dex, I think the interior of the Vikings line 1000% could be improved. I think San Francisco, which has to cut cap space somewhere, is doing it on the majority other than Trent Williams. They're doing it on that offensive line.
I mean, they've poured. So Trent Williams is their highest cap hit. But once you get past Trent Williams, there's not another offensive lineman in sight among the next 10 highest paid 49ers. They're pouring so much money into Deebo Samuel, offense, Eric Armstead, defensive front, Fred Warner, linebacker, George Kittle, Tarvarius Ward, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, Javon Hargrave, like Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Dre Greenlaw, linebacker, Juszczyk. So they've decided, hey, we're going to spend a bunch of money to solidify our trenches on the defensive side, and a linebacker, two linebackers, and a cornerback on offense. We're going to pay Deebo, we're going to pay Ayuk, we're going to pay Kittle, and we have to sacrifice in a couple places. So, we'll just have a six-figure quarterback, which is great, and then we'll have a few offensive line spots that are just going to be kind of, jags, and our quarterback's going to have to make it work.
Which is clearly now, in retrospect, or it was part of the thought process in the Trey Lance trade.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think they're finding out that Brock Purdy is even more mobile and athletic and can do the things than Trey Lance had some injury things, but everything that they thought they were getting in Trey Lance, they're getting in Brock Purdy.
Yes.
So, okay, but we got one. Offensive line. We're saying the Vikings, we're on the board. We're on the board.
The big guys.
Okay. Two more categories over to defense here. We're going to say that special teams, I don't know, whatever. You probably take the Niners kicker, but we're going to leave that off the board.
Yeah, let's leave that off the board.
Defensive front. So defensive line, interior, edge.
Yeah.
I mean, because the Vikings, the problem is all these dudes are free agents. So even if we bring back Daniil, healthy DJ Wanham, right? They're two sack leaders.
Yeah.
The Niners defensive front is Nick Bosa, arguably the best, but for sure top three, right there with Max Crosby. And Daniil is on a level below Nick Bosa statistically. Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, and Chase Young is now.
It's going to get worse.
Front.
Yes, and keep in mind too, when they knew that they were prepared to pop again, the 49ers, John Lynch, right? Go for it, guy.
Yeah.
Chase Young trade.
Yeah.
Said, you know what? Let's go out and add. Let's go out. And in that case, I will say this: Jalen Ramsey to the Rams, Chase Young. I will say. That's the time that you say, screw the salary cap. If we can win a Super Bowl, we'll take the hits.
Yep.
And look, Chase Young has not lived up to his potential necessarily. That's a nice little just extra chess piece that they get to deploy at their own arsenal, which is awesome. But I mean, having Hargrove, Armstead, both this is what Vikings defensive lines used to look like for years, right? Like the Vikings fans got spoiled forever with the Williams walls, and then Jared Allen's or Daniil Hunters or Ray Edwards, Everson Griffins, etc. The list goes on. Linval Joseph. It's only been recently in the last few years that they still had Neal through that timeline. But like Harrison Phillips, he's okay. They've lost their really nose tackle and interior tackle presence. This is what the Vikings used to have for years in their defensive line, and they're still a step behind and with some major questions going forward with almost none of these guys under contract for next year.
You're right.
So we're going to put defensive front Niners, right? And then I'm going to lump linebackers and secondary into one, mostly based on how the Vikings play. The Vikings kind of blend secondary and linebackers together with the extra safety on the field. The Vikings have some interesting pieces. Ivan Pace Jr. for sure. I mean, Harrison Smith still technically part of this thing until proven otherwise. But Charvarius Ward is the best cornerback on either roster. And Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner would be the two best linebackers on either roster. I don't know if like Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum, who are really good safeties, and Josh Metellus, it's closer than you would think. But I think it's San Francisco, linebackers and secondary.
Linebackers for sure. The cornerback position in San Francisco is an interesting one to discuss because Charvarius Ward is fantastic. They also, beyond him, have some of the same problems that the Vikings do. But that being said, they at least have one guy who is really good. And I think Byron Murphy Jr. for the Vikings did a better job than PFF grade showed. And when he got hurt in the Bengals game, that secondary took a huge hit. But yeah, you take San Francisco's. And if you could start, if you went to Brian Flores tomorrow and said, okay, Charvarius Ward, dude's eyes would light up. So,
oh man,
I don't.
Now you might take Flores as a defensive coordinator here. I mean, the Niners have a good defense.
Steve Wilkes, absolutely, I would. Yes, but no.
The only thing that's going to push us over is, and you saw it with the Lions a little bit this last draft. Unless the Vikings have a killer draft here that puts their defense over the top immediately, and like Jaquelin Roy just automatically steps up in training camp and becomes a really good piece for there's just so many unknowns. I'm also for sure not going to pretend like I know the ins and outs of the Niners, or not just linebackers, but secondary pieces either. So I think it's hard to judge on that, but I think it's easy enough to say with so many unknown pieces that the Vikings have that you can just flip that advantage to San Francisco.
I will just say this, and as you guys know, I am Josh Metellus' number one fan. I came back from the spring practices and said, oh my God, this is going to be special. And it was. I will say this, and Vikings fans, if you don't like to be reminded of the team's mistakes, cover your ears, earmuffs right now. But this discussion, I think it would be different if the Metellus role was being played by Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, that's because Kyle Hamilton would be one of like the 3 or 4 best defensive players on either roster.
Did you see what that dude was doing on Sunday? He's all ridiculous. Over the field. So that's where misses hurt you. But I'd go San Francisco.
So we just did as objectively as we could there 7 different groupings, head coach, all the way through the trenches. 7. 6 of the 7 tail of the tape go to San Francisco. 1 of the 7 goes to the Vikings offensive line, and there's some that are a little bit closer in there. The Vikings are they have a capable, good quarterback, and they've got some really interesting defensive pieces here and there. But yeah, that's kind of where things stand. And by the way, just because San Francisco tallies 6 of the 7 boxes here doesn't mean that it's a blowout every time they play. Of course, the Vikings can beat the Niners on a random Monday night in October, but over the course of a 5-month NFL season, there's a reason why the Niners are perennially playing deep into January and early to mid-February, right?
Exactly.
So
they're built for this time of the year, and the Vikings, unfortunately, are golfing.
or, swimming or doing something.
I hope they're having fun.
Football. We've got the hard count coming up here in a second, but let's say hi to our dogs real quick here. Nutrisource dogs on this show. Nutrisource is the official dog and pet food of Maya Mackey, Stella Zolgad, Vinny Goff. Maya is probably 15 minutes away from coming up here and asking for her Nutrisource chicken and rice half scoop for lunch, boys.
And that is the look that I get every day from Stells because she says, "Old man, feed me now." In fact, it was the same thing this morning I did, and she woofs it down. Sometimes I say, "Stella, slow down, enjoy the food." But she just says, "Give me my Nutrisource right now, you dummy."
Yeah, sometimes Vinny will even not double dip, but he'll want some, whipped cream, some sprinkles of the Nutrisource treats on top of the Nutrisource food. He dupes his father there in that department sometimes. He thinks, no. You want your 3-course meal per se, but he says, no, I want this as a 1-course all-encompassing meal, Dad. Put those treats on there.
Do it right, Dad.
Sprinkles.
You can find a Nutrisource retailer near you by going to NutrisourcePetFoods.com. Also, I'm cracking open the Prize Picks app here, a couple weeks away from the big game, but they've got some interesting numbers posted right now. So here's how Prize Picks works. You can win up to 25 times your money this football season and these playoffs by selecting 2 or more players and picking more or less on their projected stats. So right now, Christian McCaffrey sitting at, let's see here, 90.5 rushing yards. Judd, would you go more or less on McCaffrey? 90.5 rushing yards.
I would go less, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think I would go less. Yes.
Gonna get bottled up in that game?
I don't know what the game plan is going to be, and plus I think he's going to actually in the screen game, something else we didn't talk about, advantage Niners.
Shanahan. It's in the Shanahan bin.
I like it in my bin too. Anyway, less.
So with the Prize Picks app, it's very easy. You just select 2 or more players. Like I said, you can win 25 times your money, up to 25 times this football season. Go to prizepicks.com/purpledaily and use the code purpledaily for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/purpledaily with the code purpledaily. Okay, it's time for this new segment we debuted last week, the hard count.
Everybody hold your water. What's that? Balls. Triple shot. Balls. Green 18. Green 18. 10.
All right, here's a question for you guys. So any given year, we have like 40 to 50% turnover among the playoff teams in the NFL. So of this year's 14 playoff teams, let's say that 6 of them have to go. 6 of them will not be back in the playoffs next year. Which of those 6 teams? I'll list these teams. Here are the playoff teams from this year, okay? Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, Browns, Dolphins, Steelers, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions, Buccaneers, Eagles, Rams, Packers. We can group ourselves together here. We need to take 6 of those teams out. Maybe on a future episode, we'll do which 6 teams are in.
All right. I'll go first. I think Philly's out.
Really?
And Sirianni is fired. Bozo gets bounced.
Yeah, weird vibes in Philly, for sure.
Yeah, and that, you know what? I kept waiting for that meltdown to end, and it didn't really end, and it was all very weird.
And if Jason Kelsey's out too, that's like a heart and soul figure in the locker room.
Yeah, that's that just seems seems like things are going backwards there or sideways. I think Tampa Bay is out.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird.
Yeah.
Well, in the South, there. I mean, if the Falcons do this right, and Kirk, I mean, they're going to playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kirky boy in Atlanta. You know, can I
go ahead?
Can I throw the Lions in the mix here?
I've got them highlighted right here.
Got to look at the overachievers. Who overachieved?
I got them highlighted.
So they're gonna go and play a first place schedule next year. They're gonna lose if they haven't already. As we record this, they're gonna lose maybe the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. And Dan Campbell is not an offensive schemer. So is he really going to hire a 1-for-1 replacement for Ben Johnson?
Love how you're thinking. I agree.
They got to figure out if they're going to pay Jared Goff. And they just teams that get that far, conference championship or Super Bowl, and then lose in some devastating fashion. It's hard, especially when your entire program is based on emotion. We're fired up. It's Dan Campbell.
You gave everything you had.
And he's up at the podium after that game saying, next year, it's going to take twice as much passion, effort, energy, etc. I don't think they're going to be a train wreck, but I could see the Lions falling back to like 8 or 9 wins and losing some close games.
And there are teams in their own division that are popping up. I mean, the Bears could be good. The
Packers
I'm
are
done.
here.
I'm done writing them off.
And you know what? The Vikings, there's a million questions about the Vikings, but the Vikings were one of the unluckiest teams after being one of the luckiest teams, just based on some of the metrics. So the Vikings are going to be competitive.
So that's 3 right there.
That's 3 in the NFC right there.
I've got the Browns.
Yeah, I think the Browns will.
Yeah.
Deshaun. The whole Deshaun
I
thing
don't
has
know.
been weird. I don't know. There's something about that whole about
Oh yeah, he doesn't. I mean, he hasn't been playing well. There's a lot of weird things.
right,
with
but I'm
Deshaun,
just saying, like
but
his
his playing
like
He
ability has
seems
fallen
a
off
little
cliff.
tense.
Yeah,
like ordinarily you can't get a
like,
massage anymore.
Guy could use a
But
massage.
ordinarily, you've got a lot of guys, athletes that like do or are accused of terrible things, and they play absolutely fine. Like
Big
they're
Ben
still
won
great.
some Super Bowls.
It doesn't
after...
bother them one bit. The Deshaun thing seems to be, and I know it sounds crazy, but it seems to be lingering where ordinarily, like Tyreek Hill can be accused of all these things, right? He's got 18 wives, he's done this and that. And he's like, okay, no, I'm still great.
Well, it's Deshaun too, and I think Mina Kimes broke this down where, and even in Houston, when he was even playing at the peak of his powers, that dude took a ton of sacks. That was actually the knock on him. That's what probably prevented him from even entering the echelon of the conversation of tier 1 quarterback when he was floating around there. He's still taking a lot of sacks, and he doesn't have the mobility or the ability to make up for all the sacks he now takes in Cleveland. So I think he has just, and obviously not playing football for 2 years, which is what he had to go through when he was on the exempt list. So yeah, there's a lot of question with the Browns. I'll add, and this just puts it with a stamp for me because I just saw this come down. Do you see who the Steelers just hired as their OC?
No.
Arthur Smith. So you can take take as much as I know Rooney had a big presser yesterday, still supporting Mike Tomlin, rightfully so, saying we'll be back. And hey, look at our offense with Mason Rudolph. I love Mike Tomlin. Steelers are playing in a tough division too with the Ravens, and the Bengals are going to be back with Joe Burrow. Yeah. I think we can take the Steelers out.
I think Arthur Smith, so this might sound nuts. I think being allowed to concentrate on just being OC though, like with the Titans, he did a good job. I think he has no ability to lead men, but I think he does have the ability to call plays. So I'm curious on that one. He strikes me in that bin of guys who probably never should have been a head coach. But I'll be curious to see if, although he and Tomlin seem like a weird pairing, but
it does feel a little bit like Tomlin. The contract is kind of a question, right? It kind of feels like
an extension. They both sides said he's going to get an extension, but yeah.
Here's the other thing to look out for though in the AFC. You got to make room for the Bengals and Joe Burrow to get in.
Yes.
You got to make room for the Jaguars because before Trevor Lawrence had the high ankle sprain, the Jaguars were on a roll. He tried to play through a high ankle sprain for 5 weeks. It was a train wreck. And I think you got to make room for the 5-win Chargers with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. He brought that Niners team 10 years ago from nothing to 13 wins overnight.
Yep.
You got Justin Herbert. So we need to bounce a third team from the AFC here.
I got one for you.
I got one
Chiefs
too.
After Andy Reid retires. Dolphins.
Nobody uncircles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, you think this is the year, huh?
I think this is finally the year. Yeah.
Okay, we'll throw the Bills on here. Stephon Diggs demands a trade.
I think Josh Allen can make up for a lot of these things.
He can. I just have a feeling. I just feel like the bubble is going to burst at some point completely, and that they're going to miss the playoffs, and then McDermott gets fired.
I love Mike McDaniel, but they hit a wall every year in December at Tua. I don't know if that's teams figuring out Tua. I don't know if that's Tua just kind of bleeping down his leg. But if they roll back with Tua, I don't know how seriously I can take. We talk about wins not really mattering or not putting too much stock in October wins. The Dolphins were the best team in football for the first 8 weeks, and they were an easy one and done in the wild card round. So I think there might be some regression there too.
I could see that as well. Yeah, the AFC, and even we're not even talking about the Raiders. They had a hot finish to the season. Antonio Pierce, they got good players there too. Who's their quarterback going to be?
You. As great a story as it was, are the Texans back?
Yeah,
they could maybe take a dip. Maybe they go back to 9 wins or something.
Well, and Stroud, just because you have a great first year, doesn't mean that the rest of the league won't catch up with you. It doesn't mean that you're in trouble or you're done.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've certainly seen that where teams, because, again, right now you have a bunch of coaches in dark rooms, phone off, family sent off on vacation while they grind film trying to stop Stroud.
Yeah. I've got one more hard count. So we said Philly, Tampa, Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo, with like Miami as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
In there. Okay. All right, I got one more hard count question for you guys.
Green 18! Green 18! Everybody hold your water. What's that?
So we talked about, the Lions, and like they have to make a decision. Do they pay Jared Goff? He's got 1 year left on his contract. Probably not going to go in as a lame duck. He's going to want, they might. The Vikings did with Kirk. But like the Lions have to figure out, are they going to pay Jared Goff $45 million a year? The Vikings are trying to figure this out with Kirk Cousins. Declan mentions Tua with the Dolphins, that he's a good quarterback, but he's being propped up by some great weapons, a great system. Do you want to pay him $40 million a year? So here's my question to you guys. And you're looking at a Super Bowl matchup where you've got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time making like $50 million a year, and it's worth it because they won a Super Bowl even after they said goodbye to Tyreek Hill. And then you have another team that said, you know what, we're not going to pay Jimmy G anymore. We're not going to do this. And we're not going to make a move for some other mediocre. We're going to go and just put Brock Purdy in our system and then use the money on the rest of the roster. How many quarterbacks in the NFL are you okay with paying top of the market free agency money to without asking any questions? Where you just say, you know what? Yep, that guy's worth the $50 million or $45 million. I know it's going to create some holes on my roster, but that's okay. He's good enough to overcome it, and I'll just worry about it later.
3.
Okay.
Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I think that is it. I think those are the only 3 guys I would pay whatever penalty or whatever money it is to get them and worry about the rest later. I think those are the only 3 that I'd be comfortable doing it with.
Because, by the way, the guys that you don't include on that list, once it reaches that decision point, you don't then get to be like, oh, we'll pay you 30. They would walk and they would go somewhere else, right?
I need to see Justin Herbert with Jim Harbaugh. Justin Herbert, I think, is fantastic.
He is really good. Yeah.
And I think he was I think he was being coached by a guy who turned out to be just not good at being a coach. So the Harbaugh-Herbert dynamic really intrigues me.
I agree on Declan's 3.
Mm-hmm.
I agree on Herbert being in the conversation, but we need to see more because to this point, he hasn't been able to even like overcome anything to get to the playoffs on a regular basis, right? Despite what we saw on Sunday, I think I still have to put Lamar Jackson. Like if the conversation is pay him $50 million or let him walk, I would probably still pay him $50 million like the Ravens did and just sort of try to figure it out. That's pretty much the list though, right?
I think.
Like how many other guys can regularly make up for the deficiencies that their salary would create on the roster? I don't know.
Yeah, and the NFC, good Lord. I have a tough time putting anyone in the same conversation as those 3. I loved what I saw from Jalen Hurts, and how much was that? Was that just Nick Sirianni maybe just shipwrecking things? I loved what I saw from Jalen Hurts, but man, I don't know if they'll regret that contract, but I can't put him in the unanimous pay him whatever he wants category. I think yet either.
Right. And the only one, in my opinion, who's just a clear yes without a negotiation or questions is Mahomes.
Yeah, like, and he's done it, dude. He's overcome,
and he just does it all the time.
They're like, okay, so we're going to do this contract. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have to say goodbye to Tyreek Hill, Super Bowl. And then it gets a little worse in terms of like roster erosion. We're like, all right, so we're going into the second year of this situation, or the third year, whatever it was of that contract. And not only do you not have Tyreek Hill, but you won a Super Bowl without him. That's great. We don't even know who your receivers are going to be. We're just going to give you like Kadarius Toney, and good luck. And by the end of the year, Rashee Rice becomes one of the best receivers in the AFC in the last like 6 weeks. It's insane.
And he's still throwing the ball to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who just screwed him left and right. And Scantling makes 2 huge catches in the playoffs. It makes no sense. Look, Aaron Rodgers at one time was absolutely awesome. Hall of Famer, right? when this happened to him with the receivers in Green Bay, he just melted down.
They missed the playoffs. Yeah.
And they they won games and got to January and it went sideways. Like you think about what Mahomes is overcoming without like at least publicly bitching, complaining, staring guys down.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yep. So, okay, yeah, let us know in the YouTube comment section. What is your answer to that question, Purple Daily Faithful? How many quarterbacks would you just, it's not a blank check, but it's like top of the market value.
We forgot Kirk.
Oh, we did.
Oh, yeah,
forget Kirk. Yeah.
You guys,
for
we
sure,
forgot Kirk.
For sure put Kirk on that list. 100% put Kirk on that.
I want a mock.
Let's do a mock here to wrap this episode. Our mocking today is presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, which a couple months ago was named one of the 10 best employers in the state of Minnesota by Forbes. So great place to work and a great place to partner with if you run a business. Federated's corporate culture is grounded in equity, integrity, teamwork, and respect. And these 4 cornerstones create the foundation that supports all interactions and decision-making. They are here to help you find the right coverage to fit your business needs. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Also, our friends at Zero Res are here with the Score North special to get your carpets deep cleaned, to get your air ducts deep cleaned, so you can breathe in that fresh air inside your home. What is the Score North special at Zero Res? It's 3 rooms, Zero Resified, starting at just $119 this month, and also $75 off when you get your air ducts cleaned. That's 952 Zero Res or zeroresminnesota.com. Say you want the Score North special and spell it forward or backwards. It spells the same, Zero Res. Here's the mock, boys. It's from Yahoo Sports. It's from yesterday. And it starts with the Bears taking Marvin Harrison Jr. with the number 1 overall pick. Bold. And then it has the Commanders taking Drake May with the number 2 overall pick. And then it has the Patriots taking Jaden Daniels with the number 3 overall pick.
Whoa, they're pulling the plug.
Wait a second.
Caleb.
How many people didn't show up to Caleb Williams' birthday party at this point? What happened here? What vetting? What did we learn? What did we learn?
Yeah.
Looks like a lot of people didn't show up to the birthday party because the Cardinals take Malik Neighbors, wide receiver LSU number 4.
God, this is so going for
The
clicks. I love it.
The Chargers take Rome Odunze, wide receiver Washington number 5. The Giants take Joe Alt, the monster offensive tackle from Notre Dame at 6. And the Titans take Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle Penn State number 7.
Did they just forget about Caleb Williams?
They've got him going 8 to the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay, if that plays out, you have to trade up. You'd have to do it, right? Obviously,
This is bonkers, man. Yeah.
you'd have to make the call.
Once you'd move up to 7 with the Titans, right? Or somewhere.
Yeah,
He's not falling to 8.
because you wouldn't go to
Well, but wait, because by this point the Falcons have signed Kirk, so he'd continue to drop.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. 100% right. The
one
Bears
of the most
take
shocking
Jerzon
things.
Newton 9. The Jets take another offensive tackle here, Talise Fuaga from Oregon State. And the Vikings with the 11th overall pick, if they stay at 11 with this draft playing out the way that it does, take defensive back Cooper DeJean from Iowa, who we also saw yesterday. With Dallas Turner, by the way, going 12th to the Broncos, the Alabama edge rusher.
Wow.
Wait a second, though.
by God.
Another round?
By God, this is a 2-round mock from Yahoo. 2 rounds. Let's see who they have the Vikings selecting with the 42nd overall pick. Oh, interesting. With the 42nd overall pick, Yahoo Sports has the Vikings selecting out of the University of Washington, quarterback Michael Penix.
I want a mock.
Wow.
If Caleb Williams dropped that much and there wasn't some like absolute red flag of which he's not going to, and the Vikings didn't trade up, I think they might riot.
I mean,
I think they might riot
pretty
in
wild,
the
man.
494, 35W, 394. I think there might be riots all over the cities.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild mock. The mock draft world is getting squirrely here toward the end of January. We need Senior Bowl. We need Combine. We got to get some structure here.
Really squirrely.
Man.
Squirrely.
So, yeah, I believe we've done now almost 30, if not 30 mock drafts here. And we'll start to put together some trends. But I believe Michael Penix Jr. is the most frequently mocked player to the Vikings. Sometimes first round, sometimes second round, which is very interesting.
And his stock's about to change, I think.
Like moving up or down?
Up probably. Because I think the Combine, unless the medicals are a mess, which is, I guess, possible. But I think he's going to, I think once the Combine and Pro Days are done, he for sure moves up probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's going to be some teams that want him floating like bad medical information to reporters,
True.
right? Oh, yeah, his knees are that of a 79-year-old Navy officer. So
he can play
careful
on crutches.
No.
Yeah. He's going to be 5 years and then he'll be in a broadcast booth. So there you go. We'll keep the mocks flowing here on this show. We'll have plenty of post Senior Bowl coverage too on Purple Daily on Draft, which is our weekly Monday show led by Declan and Tyler Fornes and Miles Gorham, and some other fun things in store over the next coming weeks. This is Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.